Suking Prose red leaves. Today I happened to look through an old book and suddenly came across a withered red leaf. I brought this red leaf back when I visited Qing Mountain in Nanjing 8 years ago. I wanted to keep it there as a souvenir, but I forgot about it as time went by. Today, old things are reunited, and a lot of nostalgic information is added out of thin air. I played with it over and over again while thinking about what happened that day. Apart from myself, there were 4 people traveling with me that day. One was Zhang Gigi, my classmate in junior high school. The other was Gigi's cousin Miss Zhao. And the other 2 is their husband. First, Gigi and his wife asked me to go to Qing Mountain with me on Sunday. I was studying at Nanjing University at the time. I agreed and went to her house early on Sunday morning. "It's good that you're here. This is Miss Zhao." Gigi pointed to a modern female guest and introduced me with a smile. Then he introduced Miss Zhao's husband, Mr. Zhu, and went on to say, "They are also joining our trip." I remained silent, only looking down at Miss Zhao's high heels. Gigi seemed to feel it and said to her, "Cousin, please change to a pair of shoes. My pair of rubber-soled shoes are more suitable for you." But Miss Zhao shook her head. She just stood in front of the mirror and carefully observed her face and hair. Gigi saw that she didn't want them and went to put on those shoes. Just as she was changing her shoes, her eldest daughter shouted, "Mom, I want to go, too, to go hiking outside." Gigi coaxed her for a long time, telling her to whisper softly so as not to wake her brother up, and promised many things at the same time. Only then did he coax her into pouting and agreeing to let her mother leave alone. But even so, her little hands kept holding her skirt tightly. "Maimei, please let go," Gigi begged her softly. "Don't wrinkle Mom's skirt. Look, my cousin is so beautifully dressed." Miss Zhao was busy putting on powder and rouge, looking left and right in front of the mirror, and mumbling to her husband that she regretted not changing into the newly made light red. "Zhang-sam, I originally said I was going to wear that dress today," she complained fiercely to her husband. "You were the one who pushed me so hard because I wanted to change my clothes while sitting at my cousin's house, but you don't look bad in green." Her husband comforted her with a troubled face. "Darlin', you." She was so angry. "What do you think of me? I told you that I don't like wearing green. Did you hear me? What do you think of me? Tell me." Gigi's little son started to move in the cradle. Gigi quickly slipped over and patted him. I gently leaned on Miss Zhao's shoulder and persuaded her, "Let's go quickly. It's getting late." So her husband came over and put his arm around her arm, and they walked out side by side. Miss Zhao muttered, "You have to look good when you go out, so that others can look at you." I turned around and urged Gigi to come forward, and she agreed, telling the maid repeatedly that the baby's diapers were in the second drawer. When she woke up, she would change the diapers and feed her milk powder. And the milk powder should be mixed evenly. And Maimei, don't let her run around. "Mom," Maimei came over with tears in her eyes when she saw her mother mentioning her. "Maimei also wants to climb mountains." Gigi's husband pulled her away and told her that her mother would get better if she went outside to play, have a nice voice, and don't let her eyes wander. But Maimei refuses to let her go, and Gigi also looks at her and will not leave, and the 2 are inextricably entangled. I couldn't help but frown. Gigi seemed to be very sorry, and whispered to me to leave with her husband first, and she would come right after. But we waited at the door for almost a quarter of an hour, and then we saw her walking out in a hurry. Her skirt was oddly wrinkled, and the corners of her eyes were moist. We took the train to Qing Mountain, where the mountains were covered with red leaves, but none of them seemed to be in the mood to appreciate it. Miss Zhao frowned and hated that the green dress was not decent. Mr. Zhu reluctantly comforted her in annoyance and said that the red leaves were very vivid against the green dress. Gigi lowered his head and walked away as if he was worried. Her husband looked at her face frequently, as if he was observing how much her health had improved. "Gee, look at these red leaves. They're all over the mountain." He pretended to be childish to make her happy. She nodded and said, "There are so many. Isn't it so red that it's so cute?" She nodded again and said, "It's really red." So everyone was speechless, and the wind rustled the leaves. After the sound, Miss Zhao could only be heard sighing in a low voice. "The color of the leaves matches the clothes I have at home." But now Miss Zhao's husband panicked after hearing this. After a while, he suddenly thought of a way to please his wife. He suggested, Let's all go to the mountain and take a photo. Darling, what do you think? After hearing this, Gigi became happy and said, "It's great to take photos, and it's a souvenir. I'll see Mimi Bauer tomorrow." I don't know how happy I am, but Miss Zhao replied with a mournful face, "But I can't accompany you. Isn't this kind of clothes? With the leaves red and green. So deadly?" If I had known you, I couldn't help but interrupt her. "You can't tell the difference between red and green in the photo. So what does it matter?" Maybe she thought it was pretty good, so she looked a little happy. Poor Mr. Zhu, as if he was being pardoned by the emperor, kept urging everyone to leave quickly. "Really?" Gigi said, panting as he climbed up to steps with all his strength. "We have to walk faster. It's still early to take photos. If everyone comes to my house for a potluck, I'm afraid Bauer will wake up early." I looked at the big bag in her husband's hand and felt very disappointed. I asked her, "Didn't we plan to have a picnic on the mountain in advance?" But she firmly objected. "How can bread and biscuits be used as food? We'd better walk faster. My legs are sore from running." Miss Zhao yelled from behind, leaning on a tree by the roadside, listening to the red leaves rustling above her head. "Why don't you look at the contents of your shoes for me?" "What?" She threw a muddy high-heeled shoe at her husband viciously. Mr. Zhu Chengjin held up the shoes and looked at them carefully. I couldn't stand that look, so I turned around and wanted to break off a few red leaves. But the good red leaves were all high up, and I was too short to reach them. So Gigi's husband came over to help me. He jumped up the tree, picked out the brightly colored ones, folded them down, and asked me to pick them up. When Gigi saw him ducking away, she was so frightened that she screamed, "Don't throw yourself, come down quickly," she called to her husband, as if calling Mimi Bauer. "What's so fun about that thing? Take it home. Wouldn't it be cut to pieces by the children in a short time and staining the room in vain?" Her husband was really obedient, so we walked forward again, took pictures on the mountain, and then came back. On the way back, both men said they were hungry and chewed the bread and biscuits with gusto. I also ate some. Gigi was so tired that he didn't want to eat anything. Miss Zhao bit into half a biscuit in her husband's hand. She thought it was tasteless and immediately spit it on the ground. She quickly took out a small powder box from her arms and was busy applying powder and lipstick. To be honest, I didn't enjoy much scenery that day. If you asked me what Qing Mountain is like, I would have no impression other than the red leaves all over the sky. I clearly remember the faces of the four of them in my mind. The woman is annoyed and absent-minded, while the man is extremely bored and doesn't know what to do. I know they all regret this trip in their hearts, but in order to take care of other people's interests, they have to say happy words. What a reluctant attitude. Then I realized that there are many people in the world who are not worthy of traveling. All of them are women, and most of them are men. Neither they nor they can get the slightest happiness from traveling, spending money, exerting effort, and wasting time on a trip outside, only to bring back tiredness and boredom. When I say that women are not suitable for traveling, half of the relationship is physiological. It goes without saying that it is inconvenient to travel during menstruation and that it is inconvenient to travel during pregnancy. Even in normal times, the pain of having to endure urination and defecation is more than offset by the joy. A person cannot quietly appreciate the beauty of the water and the mountains when he is suffering from abdominal pain, and women's restrooms cannot be installed all over the scenic spots to cope with such emergencies. Then, when women are in a hurry, can they be as elegant as Wu Tui Lao Lao Fu? Want to do something? In addition, there are still people in remote places who are afraid of being teased by bad people. And when returning home, they are afraid of crying babies. When it is hot, they do not dare to go to the wind. And when they are dirty, they do not dare to drink from the clear spring. It is not happy when the hair is messed up, and when the stockings are punctured. It is not happy, and when you sweat, your feet pain, rain, and sun exposure are all unpleasant things. So how can we enjoy them? What fun is there in mountains and rivers? And I know that women don't like famous mountains and rivers by nature. Most of them like artificial and delicate things. A delicate rockery can last them a long time. They can count how many caves there are. You call on the mountain and I respond at the bottom. It's interesting, endless. If you just trust men, it will be difficult and boring to go up to Mount Tai to watch the sunrise or to visit the monkeys in Mi. Traveling is a hard job for women, because as soon as they go out, they have to bring a lot of things, including handkerchiefs, stockings, bras, and menstrual belts. Which one is missing? Moreover, I was born with weak legs, so I had to ask for a sedan chair when going up the mountain, or hire a car on the flat ground, and the sedan driver liked to knock the women's bamboo poles. This was not a trip. It was simply suffering. Therefore, most women have men as companions when they go out. I am always surprised and amazed by such men. I am surprised at their boldness and sigh at their stupidity. It took a lot of effort to get only a few commemorative photos for them. So why not just pick up a few dozen ready-made landscape photos in the photo studio, and then ask them to insert and print the woman's jade photo once inside. You'll see the distant mountains of Mi, which contrast with each other beautifully. This will save the woman the pain of trekking, and save her from the trouble of escorting the driver. Wouldn't it be the best of both worlds? Fortunately, the purpose of such a woman who travels for fashion is only to have souvenir photos to show off to others. She doesn't care about the art of photography. You can print the photos into one, so that her delicate feet can be placed on the top of Hoshan Mountain. Her jade hands were holding the willows of the West Lake, and she was satisfied in her heart. Who has ever had a real interest in the West Lake of Hoshan Mountain? I thought of the ugly behavior of these photographers on Qing Mountain, and couldn't help but hatefully tear up this red leaf as a souvenir.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.